The Evil Within 2 is a survival horror in the vein of the Resident Evil series that will have you avoiding grotesque monstrosities while desperately scavenging for supplies as you battle to rescue your daughter from the inside of her own head. That's about as close to the plot as you're going to get without our dedicating an entire video explaining how that makes any sense. The Evil Within 2 serves up more of the same nightmarish hellscape from 2014's original, along with a few improvements. It doesn't shy away from the usual tropes of the genre either, wheeling out exquisitely freakish monsters, mysterious shadowy figures, and creepy old houses with such gusto you'll be too busy being swept along for the ride to notice. Effective tropes from a litany of horror sources come at you so fast you'll barely have time to recover from one before the next one sneaks up on you. Here are 6 horror tropes The Evil Within 2 gets right. First up on the list is running away from scary things. It's the mad dash with frantic backwards glances to make sprinting in a straight line slightly more interesting. Getting in your car gear while simultaneously outrunning a ghostly or demonic spectre isn't particularly out of the ordinary in horror films and games. Just give Jack Torrance or the Candyman a call and you'll be beach body ready in no time. Or just a body. Your base physical fitness level is going to have a huge bearing on the outcome. They've doubled down on the concept of nonchalant pursuer with the gruesome giggling guardian, who can't stop chuckling at the sight of the back of our head, because that's all she's ever going to see if I've got anything to do with it. As terrifying as the enemies in the first game are, they've got nothing on the menagerie in The Evil Within 2. The pile of nightmares that is Laura in The Evil Within pales in comparison to the guardian, and the keeper's tiny meat hammer looks as intimidating as a toothpick next to that giant chainsaw. And to make matters worse, the guardian seems to be in on a joke that we've clearly missed, which is enough to fill anyone's soul with dread. Perhaps if we nod and smile, she'll back off. If the first thing that springs to mind when you think of air ducts is a well-ventilated building, then you're definitely going to die the next time an axe-wielding maniac goes on a rampage in your office building because someone left a soggy teabag on the side. Again, air vents are escape holes, plain and simple. Whenever our heroes find themselves at a dead end, trapped inside a room on the cusp of getting gift-wrapped in their own intestines, the holy air vent is presented unto them to make a clumsy getaway. Sometimes a trope is used to kill off characters, like poor old Dallas in Alien. But when it's used for a reasonably clean getaway, inexplicably the bad guy, or demonic vision made up of a maelstrom of body parts and half a dozen heads, never quite seems to hear the noisy clambering about, see the conspicuous open passageway, and put 2 and 2 together. The worst the protagonist has to put up with is a jump scare when his hiding place gets discovered, but it's business as usual after that, if your business is being slowly hunted by a variety of unspeakable malevolent entities. There's always one, isn't there? The irrational nervous guy with a gun trope is usually a sign that things are about to go sideways pretty sharpish. A useless scientist or tech support guy who's more than happy to pull a gun on you, but is a quivering wreck in the presence of an actual threat. The Evil Within 2's Liam O'Neill is one such example, greeting you with a gun moments after leaving his bodyguard to die.
He was just a member of Union security detail.
While I would have been more than happy to tackle him to the ground to show him who's boss, and pistol whip him into submission to make sure he really remembered, scripted events work just as well. They're just not half as satisfying.
Let's try this again. I'm Sebastian Castellanos.
Spooky set pieces are half of what makes up the horror genre. Whether it's bags of body parts or a dark street lined with zombies, it wouldn't be the same without them. No matter what kind of scenario you're in, whether a psycho slasher is at your heels or you're the target for a ghost who hasn't got enough to occupy itself in the afterlife, someone somewhere always manages to find time to set up a large-scale diorama on the off chance you'll wander by and see it. It could be anything. A chair, a body, or simply a person standing in the middle of the road. How do they know that you'll walk in at just the right angle with just the right lighting to set it all off? Who knows? In The Evil Within 2, someone's been busy making these everywhere because you can't walk into a room without stumbling upon an expertly placed haunted wheelchair with the perfect ambient light setup. And they've got it down to a fine art. It can be as subtle as an unassuming room with a single crooked picture on the wall, or as obvious as a mirrored wall that will inevitably reveal someone creeping up behind you. Who cares if it would take days to set up this stuff? They look so tantalizing that we can't resist having a poke around, even though it's almost certainly going to end badly for us. It's best to let them get on with it and just appreciate what can be achieved with an everyday object and a spotlight. When you don't want to waste time on exposition that tells the audience the whys and the wherefores of the protagonist's motivation and how they got to where they are, flashbacks are your friend.
A figment of your imagination.
Your best friend. locking someone in a house for 5 minutes and dousing them in spurts of memories past while you distract them with funny noises and hallucinations is a nice, easy way to drip feed the essential nuggets pertinent to our hero's past and what drives him forward. The Evil Within use them to flesh out the story of the game's antagonist Ruvik, and The Evil Within 2 carries on the tradition, filling in the gaps between the events of the two titles, but they've upped the ante by making the transitions slightly more jarring and a hell of a lot more spooky. The static effect when Sebastian is feeling the effects of STEM are a lot more vivid this time round, and now that we know we're in STEM, there's a lot more that can be done with them. Turning on a TV to see your own body slumped in a wheelchair at the end of a corridor might make perfect sense given that we're not in the real world, but it's still unsettling, and hugely effective at painting a picture of past events. The undead and variants thereof are a staple of the horror genre, whether they're lurching, reanimated corpses who can't manage more than a brisk shamble, or the kind that are spry enough to reach the speed of Shinji Mikami to barbed wire convention. Zombies are everywhere. The Evil Within's Haunted aren't true zombies, having been regular Joes that were unfortunate enough to become mutated monstrosities. They're mindless, decaying meat sacks for the most part, with eyes like hot coals that give them away when they try to play dead to lure you in for a cheeky grab. So it's no wonder that delivering the perfect headshot is just as satisfying as popping off the heads of the real thing. The pretend real thing. In other video games with actual zombies. All of these tropes have been done to death. Pun very much intended, but when they're done well, it's an art form. There's nothing more satisfying than stepping into a macabre room decorated with hanging corpses and waiting for the jump scare, or sitting on the edge of your seat trying to sneak past a living dead as they're tucking into a light evening snack. Whether you're a horror buff or not, The Evil Within 2 has a grotesque little morsel for everyone's taste, and we can't wait to get our hands on it when it drops on October 13th.